My career was picked for me before I was born. Does it ring a bell for anybody? It was my parents' dream that I join the civil services, and I did. I joined the Indian Revenue Service. I quit in a few years, co-founded a tech startup with my partner and husband, found a calling in yoga in course of recovering from a burnout during my entrepreneurial journey, decided to become a Hatha yoga teacher, and now I'm the managing director of a hospitality group which has operations in Bangalore. It's been an eventful journey. I can't remember a single phase in my life when I was on autopilot or cruise control. The choices that I've made have constantly pushed me into new territories with new problems to solve, new kinds of challenges to overcome, new limitations to break. And in hindsight, all of that has created a lot of room for growth, and it has also hardwired resilience into my system. But does change always have to do with the big bang events of our life? Career decisions, choosing a partner or unchoosing one, getting married, having kids, all these are big decisions that leave a big impact on our life. But the change that I want to address today is the one that happens to all of us constantly, but most of us are not aware of it. Let me ask you a question. Are you the same person you were when you were 5 years old? 15 years old? 25 years old, the older ones? No. And do you remember one single incident or one delta that made you into who you are right now? Or was that a slow process that you barely realized was happening every single day? The latter, right? That is the continuum of change. Every thought, every experience, every encounter that we have leaves its imprint on us. In other words, it changes us. Let me explain this by using an analogy I recently came across in a book called Focus by Dandapani. He talks about how our mental habits get formed, one thought at a time. Let's say your awareness went to a certain thought for the first time in your mindscape today. And the thought is, I'm going to be joyful today no matter what. You tried, but it didn't work the first day. You started on a positive note, but then somebody said something, your friend ignored you, maybe your grades didn't come out what you expected, and poof, there comes the long face. You think that thought again the next day, and the day after. Every time you take your awareness to that thought, what you're doing is you're deepening a pathway to that thought in your mind. Just like a forest trail, which gets clearer and clearer and easier to use the more people use it, similarly, in a few days, you will realize that you don't have to think that thought. Your awareness will go there automatically because now it's seeped in into your subconscious. The same thing applies for negative thoughts also. The more you let your awareness go to anger or fear, the easier it gets for you to be angry or afraid. And that is how we are changing every day. By being the way we are, by acting and feeling and thinking what we do. Most of us don't realize that this process of change is happening all the time, but it is, which is why we are calling ourselves human beings. We are always in the act of being. Now, why is it important for us to take charge of this process of change? Let's take another example. Most of you will join the workforce shortly. And we know that work-related stress, work-related anxiety is the silent global pandemic that we are living through across the world right now. If we are living lives and taking decisions that are actively working against our well-being, does that not entail a loss of agency? It means that at some point in our lives, we've lost control of how we are being shaped by our environment, how we are being shaped by the world around us. And that is why it's so very important for us to reclaim that agency so that we can live the lives that we want to live. How do we do it? That's the next question. How do we take charge? How do we put ourselves in the driver's seat of the change that we undergo on a daily basis? I'm going to talk about 3 pillars of what I'm going to call conscious change management. But I urge all of you to treat them just as stimulus, just as starting points in your journey. As you go down this path, you will devise your own ways and methods, and you've got to let them evolve with time. So the first pillar that I want to talk about is not identifying with your thoughts and emotions. We cannot change consciously if we are anchored to our old habits. Thoughts and emotions create patterns of mental behavior, and most of our personality is shaped by how we think and how we feel. So if we are to break through our limitations, if we are to change for the better, the first thing to do is to not identify with who you are right now. Treat the person that you are right now as a version of yourself at your stage of evolution. You want to upgrade to a better version, just like a systems upgrade on your computer, right? But you can't do that if your current behavior, your current habits have a firm grip on you. How do we ensure that we are not prisoners of our own behavior? Since thoughts and emotions are products of the mind, the easiest way to do that is to realize and remember, I am not my mind. There is a very simple but powerful meditation that can help you with that. It is something I started my own spiritual journey with. If you're interested, I can talk to you after the talk about it. But essentially, when we remember the thought, I am not my mind, what are we doing? We just spoke about it a few minutes ago. We are creating a swift highway to that truth in our mind. And before we know it, we would have internalized it. It would become a living reality for us. So that's pillar number 1, not identifying with your thoughts and emotions. The second thing that I want to talk about in conscious change management is understanding fear. I have specifically chosen fear to talk about because it's the most paralyzing of human emotions. It stops us from taking decisions that cause us discomfort, but that's exactly the space where growth and change happen. Fear of failure, fear of adversity, fear of the unknown, all of this limits us, and the opportunity cost is life itself. So let's unpack fear a little bit, right? It's a human emotion, and like all emotions, it's a product of the mind. What is happening in our mind when we are experiencing fear? Our mind is going into the future, imagining a negative outcome, coming back to the present and fearing it, right? If you look at it this way, you realize that fear is not something to be overcome. Fear is something to be understood. Since it is something that our minds are creating, it's entirely up to us to uncreate it, to undo it. And it's so very important that we do that, because when we act out of fear, or in most cases when we don't act because of fear, what we are doing essentially is we are building these prison walls around us, and we are saying, these are the boundaries beyond which my life should not tread. And you will never know what fantastic possibilities you may be foreclosing by doing that. One of my favorite quotations by my guru, it says, the best way to discover yourself is to get lost. If you cannot get lost, if you don't have the capability to get lost, you're obviously in chains, aren't you? So that's our second pillar, which is understanding fear and undoing fear. Now the third thing that I want to talk about in changing consciously is the role of rituals. What comes to your mind when I say the word ritual? Something to do with religion, something to do with... Actually, a ritual has nothing to do with religiosity. You decide that I'm going to start my day by sitting quietly for 10 minutes every morning. That is your ritual. It is the consistency with which you perform a certain action that makes it a ritual. How can rituals help us in conscious change management? When you decide to do something consistently every single day, you do it. Irrespective of what your mind is telling you, irrespective of what your body is demanding. When you look at rituals this way, It's basically helping you create a certain distance from the demands of your mind, from the demands of your body. And only when we are willing to transcend our compulsions, the demands of our mind and body, we can grow into a better version of ourselves. Also, we live such busy and hectic lives these days that it can sometimes be challenging to maintain awareness towards our thoughts and actions all day long. We may start with a very composed mind, but as the demands of the day catch up with us, we tend to fall back into our old habits, old patterns of behavior that we are trying to outgrow. A ritual in that context allows you a moment outside of yourself where you can reclaim that agency, that awareness. It basically enables you to create that little bit of distance, to step back from your daily rigor a little bit, so that you can gain a level of perception which is a little bit higher. And when it comes to rituals, I believe everything is fair game. You pick your own, you design your own, except you've got to do whatever you're doing consistently. It helps if it's built around one particular sensation. It could be your breath, it could be your heartbeat, it could be your pulse, it could be the feeling of breeze on your skin, it could be anything. As long as you perform something consistently every day without fail, you will see it'll open up tremendous possibilities because it'll take you to a higher plane of awareness, of self-awareness. So that's our third pillar. So far we spoke about how change is the constant presence in our life. We spoke about how if we are to live our best life, we must be the drivers of this process of change. We spoke about the 3 pillars of conscious change management: not identifying with your thoughts and emotions, understanding and undoing fear, and the role that rituals can play in helping you create a little bit of distance from the demands of your mind and body, allowing you the room to grow, right? Now, all of this is on one side. On the other hand, there is an alternative to all of this. It's a shortcut. But most people are not able to follow this shortcut. Do we still want to know? Yes? Okay. Imagine an electron flitting inside a thunderbolt, right? Its path is erratic, zigzag, completely unpredictable. But invariably, what that electron is doing is it's moving to a higher potential. What is true of an electron is true of all life. It is the intrinsic nature of life, of human life, that it seeks a higher potential, that it wants to move to a higher potential, if we allow it to. But we don't. We always come in the way because we identify too much with the things that we have created as human beings. Be it your bank balance, that bigger car, that house, the next iPhone. These are things that we have created. There's nothing wrong with these things per se. The problem comes when they become shackles around your feet and they prevent life from blossoming into its fullest potential. If we learn to embrace life for what it brings our way, if we learn to embrace life for whatever it is that it is bringing our way, be it, it doesn't matter if you like it, don't like it, if those are the plans you had for your life or not, it doesn't matter. If we just learn to embrace it, you will see possibilities that you could never have imagined will open up in front of you. Your life will grow in a way that you could never have imagined. And I'm saying this from my own experience. I never identified with any of the jobs that I did. I was always open to opportunities. I was always open to change. And it has helped me grow in a way that I could never have imagined. It has made me into a person who if you go back 10 years and tell me that this is who I'd be today, I would say no, it's not possible. So embrace life for whatever it is bringing you. If something doesn't turn out the way you want, maybe something better is in store. Always remember that. So 2 paths to the same thing, right? You can either be an engineer and redesign your interiority to make it more conducive for change and growth, and this is where all the tools we discussed apply, or you can be a seeker and surrender to the mysteries, to the immensity, to the intelligence of life. Or you could do both. The choice is yours. Thank you.